If you're going to be creating content for the FGC, one of the biggest hurdles you're going to constantly have to overcome is finding and maintaining an audience while also staying passionate about what you create. When I came back to making content, I had a bit of an identity crisis because I didn't want to go back to doing match footage, and I wasn't quite sure what the FGC would want in 2019. However, I've kind of found a nice little spot that I'm happy with, and thanks to sites like Eventhubs, I've had a whole new audience come in and see my content. So for this video, I decided to talk with Jonathon Grey, aka Catalyst, the president of Eventhubs, and we talk about how FGC content has evolved over the years, how to get coverage for your content on Eventhubs and other sites, how to build an audience, and probably most importantly, what kind of content the FGC needs. Hope you enjoy it.
I'm John Catalyst Grey. Not with me as always is John Velociraptor Guerrero, who's actually working right now. But I run Eventhubs. I've ran it for about 12 years. It will be 13 in February, and a lot of ups and downs in between. And I love my job, but it can be very challenging. So, well, Eventhubs got started. I actually got the website going to be an event listing website. And I don't mean like just FGC stuff or whatever. That's actually why it's called Eventhubs. I was working at a newspaper at the time, and I thought that the internet needed an event listing website, and I thought that starting with fighting game stuff would be a good idea because I had a lot of friends in the community, and it's stuff I knew really well and I really enjoyed. And then so I started doing a few things on the website, and my friends were like, "This is great! Like, this is content we can't get anywhere else. Like, why don't you keep doing more of this?" And I'm like, okay, why don't I keep doing more of it? And on 12 or 13 years now, and I'm still doing more, still trying to figure it out. So yeah. As far as what niche I saw Eventhubs filling in the early years, I basically saw a huge need for getting information out there to the Street Fighter gaming public. I've been playing this since Street Fighter 2. I love fighting games, and I've been all over them. And I just kept consistently finding that a lot of the information that was prevalent in other, competitive communities and other stuff just was not there for fighting games. And I'm like, that sucks. And I don't want the fighting game community to not have access to what everyone else has, right? So we started blogging, we started doing news, and it was just it's actually been a very natural segue for us over the years, just to try to broaden our horizons. Let's make sure we're covering all the major tournaments that we can. Let's get event listings up on the website. Let's, do all this kind of stuff that we just kind of felt, fills a lot of needs for the community. We're certainly not a perfect website. There's, 50 other thousand things we could be covering. We do have to limit our coverage to, the staff that we have, but overall, it's just it was a barren wasteland. Before, we got in the scene, there was the SRK forums, and that was it. No one was even regularly blogging at that point in time. And so that's basically where we came up, is trying to fill a need that we felt was really dire in the community, or I did at least. And then people joined me along the way. In the early days, what got most of the traffic on our website was actually the guide pages. I started with Street Fighter 3 Third Strike because it was just hey, here's how to play the characters, here's their bread and butter combos and all that kind of stuff. And that's the main area we started with. And again, it just kind of wasn't out there. You had to piece it together from random forum posts and other things, and it was just kind of all laid out there in our guides to start with. And then we got into blogging and news posting shortly after that. And then once we did that and kind of made that investment, I think it took about a year or two of regularly posting up news and blogs, and that finally took off and became a big thing for us. And now it's our number one thing by far. News posting is just that's where we have most of our staff at. It's where most people come when they enter the website as a front page. There's just everyone kind of comes to us for news. But the other stuff is still very popular, our tiers and guides and all that still is a very good part of our website. But the news is by far number one. In terms of what the audience wants to see and if they've changed in the present day, I think to some degrees they definitely have. In the FGC, I think the collective knowledge that our scene has, we had guides up there about how to do very simple combos at first, right? And those were very popular. And now those simple combos are baked into most fighting games. You just go into training mode. We didn't have a lot of training mode stuff back in the day, right? The full featured, the frame data, all that kind of stuff. Shout outs to Tech in there. But the frame data, all that, those are kind of new ventures here for the FGC. And so we try to have evolved what we've done over the years quite a bit. And now a lot of our content and stories are about the narratives and the storylines that are out there about the games themselves and like where the player base is going, what people are looking at. We're pretty infamous for talking about Rashid quite a bit in Street Fighter V, how we were very not happy with the character. And probably in the past, we would have maybe done like 1 or 2 stories about that. And instead, I think we've done maybe not directly all about him, but like probably at least like 20 stories or so that kind of mentions how out of whack that character is. And that's, over a couple year span or somewhere around there. But yeah. Anything controversial for sure, like people will be all over, but there has been a company-wide thing to not post a lot of the controversial stuff. I mean, certainly we do post some of it, but I'll give an example of like the whole infiltration situation. Like we posted maybe 3 or 4 times about that, where we probably could have posted about 20. And that's just, it's not really what we want to focus on in the community. We really want to focus more on the positive stuff that's going on and the good things that are happening versus controversy, but we can't completely avoid when the negativity and other things happen. Like, Street Fighter V had a horrific launch. We can't ignore that, right? We do want to focus on what the games are doing versus what they're not, but in that process, again, you get to be one-sided with your journalistic integrity if you don't report on everything. But I will say there is a bias for us to post more on the positive side of things because we love fighting games at the end of the day. We're generally very happy to go and play them and do our jobs, and that, I think it more reflects what our personalities are, and that's just kind of like the outlet that we are. In terms of what I would like to see more from the community, this is a personal thing for me. I would love to have more people checking out like in-depth stories in the FGC that we're doing and other people are producing. There is definitely in this internet culture here in 2019, a big approach on getting in and getting out very quickly, right? Like people's attention spans are not there. They're not going to read a 5,000 word piece on, the nuances of Terry Bogard and Smash, right? And I wish they would. And we do put some of that content up there. And that's a personal thing I wish people were a little bit more invested in checking out. But when you're in business, you have to appease the people who are paying your bills. If whenever you get in the business of trying to force your opinion and how you do things down people's throat, you're usually going out of business. And you have to be very conscientious of giving people the content they want, but that also, when you do that, it creates opportunities to put the content that you want to see up there as well. And it's like, hey, this is a great chance for us to do some longer form pieces now that these other stuff have like taken off and done well for us, right? And then we're able to kind of get a little bit of a mix and match kind of thing of we're doing stuff that we want to do, plus hopefully reaching a brand new audience with more longer form stuff. I hate to say it, but it's really the non-triple A games in the fighting game community. You don't see a lot of coverage from us of like Guilty Gear, BlazBlue, and all the other games and whatnot. But we do that because we want to continue to promote the entire FGC wherever we can. And there always has to be a bottom line on the business. I have to pay people salaries, and that means, getting numbers in there so that we can continue to have the staff that we do, which means more coverage of everything. But that's one thing that we kind of still go out of our way to do, even though it really doesn't pay the bills very well, just because it's like, well, these are fighting games too, and they deserve to have some coverage. And, we always get complaints like, how come you don't do more? And it's like, well, the more is just not there. It's like the tournament entrants aren't there, the viewership's not there. We kind of do it as like we love all fighting games, so like, let's do what we can to cover them when we can. In terms of getting content up onto our website and submitting it and stuff, you really need to find a good angle. And this works, if you're posting on YouTube, on Twitter, or anything like that. Like the John Velociraptor, he often says, like, what's the so what here? Like, okay, you've got this, tournament coming up, like, why should people care about it? Because if you're having it in, let's say, Florida, like, now you're restricting that to like 1% of the FGC who's actually interested to attend and all that. And that works pretty much with anything. So the attraction could be like, here are the players that are attending, or we're going to show off a brand new game demo, or here's a storyline you've never heard of that is very interesting in the FGC that you should pay attention to. And you always want to have a so what or some kind of thing that grips people. And that's an art. Like people who are really good at structuring that, like, you'll see them up on YouTube, you'll see them on websites and whatnot, and they're getting a lot of people tuning in because they know how to structure and to package a story that's very digestible for people and really gets them involved in it. And that's really a huge key. And those same people will get accused of clickbait and all this other kind of stuff. And clickbait is misleading people and misconstruing information just to get people in the door. But creating interesting and dynamic content, that's a very different thing. That's not clickbait. That's packaging stuff in a way that will get people to look at it. In terms and I should say in regards of how you structure content in 2019, the basic guides on how to do SEO, search engine optimization, those are actually going to take you a very long way when you're first starting out. When you're getting into the more advanced stuff, like you're trying to, optimize your entire website, or 30,000 articles worth of content or something like that, like those are the more advanced stages. But especially when you're first starting out, like the basic guides of like, here's how to put like a visual thumbnail, something like that will get people in the door. Here's how to put a title tag in there. Here's how to make your headline compelling, all that kind of stuff. The basic 101 stuff will take you a very long way when you are first starting out trying to do content. And it's generally it's not really hard to do, but it does take you probably anywhere from about a week to 2 weeks to a lifetime to master. But to get started is only a couple weeks in, and you should be able to consistently generate pretty good content that gets interest from people. So one of the big ventures that we had was about 4 or 5 years ago. We launched the Fight Tracker, is what it was initially called, and that's just basically a player tracker where you can look up different parts around the globe where other fighting game players are playing, right? And it was a way to find local scenes, and we got a ton of praise and positive feedback about how great the feature was. But it actually ended up being a very low traffic venture for our website in terms of how much we put in to build that. We heard so much demand of like, please make this, please. And again, the feedback was so beautiful that we got, but it didn't really do a lot for us as we launched it. And in terms of knowing kind of like when to jump off the ship as it's sinking, you have to take a heavy analysis of what things are looking like and what your outlook is as a company or as a professional or personal person, and say like, is this going to meet the goals that I have in mind, or is this kind of a sunk cost at this point and we need to get out of it? And that's not an easy decision to make, and especially if you've dumped a lot of time and resources into something. I know a few of the FGC personalities, like they started out on YouTube, and they've primarily migrated now over to Twitch because Twitch does quite a bit more for them for CPMs and other things. And I imagine for many of those people, that was not an easy choice to make, right? Like I've sunk so many years of time into my YouTube channel, and now I have to go to Twitch. Like, is this going to even work out? Like, am I going to lose everything by doing it, right? And so what I would do when you got to that crossroads as a professional would be to talk to other people that you respect the opinions of, and reach out and do an analysis over a few weeks or a few days at the very worst, and try to make an educated decision on it. Because it is really hard to know when the right time to jump ship is versus like write it out, because it's going to lead somewhere. Because I infamously tell people, like the first 2 years of Eventhubs, I couldn't make up my hosting fee on the website, and that hosting fee was $10 a month. And that's me working full time, and it's just like I couldn't even make that much money back but I was doing it because I loved it, and I very much believed it would lead to a brighter future. And I got very lucky because Street Fighter 4 happened to come out like right as we were also hitting our apex, and the two things just kind of blew up together. When you're contacting any outlet, your odds of success are not super high. Like if you get a response at all, you're doing something. It's a lot of persistence, but throughout that all, make sure you're conducting yourself as a professional and as you want to be seen. I guess the old adage is like, dress for the job that you want to have, not the one that you have. And it's always projecting an air of competency and thoughtfulness and professionalism out there, because there's usually someone reading your message, even if they're not responding to it. And the more that they see you out there, and the more they see you doing the right things, the more likely they are to work with you in the future. And you can definitely get attention, negative attention, by posting garbage, and saying like this person sucks or whatever. But it's very much a short-term benefit, and your long-term outcome for success is very low. But success is hard to come by, and getting people to take notice of what you're doing. Trust me, I struggled with it for many years as well, and we still do. There's new ventures on our website we're still trying to get going, and it takes time. But with time and perseverance, like, you do find success out there. It's really all about doing the right things over and over again, and not letting life beat you down too hard, because life will beat you down very hard. But if you can pick yourself back up and just kind of keep going no matter what, like, you get there.
So thanks again to John for taking the time to chat with me. You can catch John on the Eventhubs podcast. I'll leave a link in the description. So what kind of content do you think the FGC needs more of? And do you think drama will always kind of dominate the FGC headlines? Let me know what you think in the comments. As always, make sure to subscribe. And for this one, let's close out with some shout outs from Catalyst.
In terms of what I'd like to plug for the website, I'd just like actually to shout out my team. We have a great team here who's very dedicated and loves the work they do. And even if, I would say that whatever kind of opinion you had of the website, like, do realize that we do love the job. We do try very hard. And so if you're listening to this, that would kind of be my big takeaway here. Maybe give us another chance or another look. We're trying to get better, and try to do better. I think we run a solid website, but there's always room for improvement.